The Mysterium Magnum, Boehme. Chapter 1. What the manifested God is, and of the Trinity. The Mysterio Magno, of the grand mystery. That is, of the manifestation of the divine word through the three principles of the divine essence. If we would understand what the new birth is and how it is brought to pass, then we must first know what man is and how he is the image of God, and what the divine indwelling is. Also what the revealed God is, of whom man is an image. When I consider what God is, then I say, He is the One, in reference to the creature as an eternal nothing. He has neither foundation, beginning, nor abode. He possesses nothing, save only himself. He is the will of the abyss. He is in himself only one. He needs neither space nor place. He begets himself in himself, from eternity to eternity. He is neither like nor resembles anything, and has no peculiar place where he dwells. The eternal wisdom or understanding is his dwelling. He is the will of wisdom. The wisdom is his manifestation. In this eternal generation we are to understand three things, viz. 1. An eternal will. 2. An eternal mind of the will. 3. The egress from the will and mind, which is a spirit of the will and mind. The will is father. The mind is conceived of the will, viz. The seat or habitation of the will, or the centre to something, and it is the will's heart, and the egress of the will and mind is the power and spirit. This threefold spirit is at one only essence, and yet it is no essence, but the eternal understanding, an original of the something, and yet it is the eternal hiddenness, just as the understanding of man is not confined in time and place, but is its own comprehension and seat, and the egress of the spirit is the eternal original contemplation, viz. A lubet, imagination, desire, or magia of the spirit. The egress, that which is flown forth from the one eternal will, is called the lubet of the deity, or the eternal wisdom, which is the eternal original of all powers, colours and virtues by which the threefold spirit comes. In this lubet, to a desiring, namely, of the powers, colours and virtues, and its desiring is an impressing, a conceiving itself. The will conceives the wisdom in the mind, and the conceived in the understanding is the eternal word of all colours, powers and virtues, which the eternal will expresses by the spirit from the understanding of the mind. And this speaking is the motion or life of the deity, an eye of the eternal seeing, where one power, colour and virtue does know each of the others, and does distinguish each from the other, and yet they all stand in equal proportion or analogy, devoid of weight, limit or measure, also undivided one from another. All the powers, colours and virtues lie in one, and it is a distinct, mutual, well-tuned, pregnant harmony, or, as I might say, a speaking word, in which word or speaking or speeches, powers, colours and virtues are contained, and with pronouncing or speaking they unfold themselves and bring themselves into sight and ken. This is now the eye of the abyss, the eternal chaos, wherein all, whatsoever eternity and time has, is contained, and it is called counsel, power, wonder, and virtue. Its peculiar and proper name is called God, or Jehovah, who is outside of all nature, without all beginnings of any essence, a working in himself, generating, finding, or perceiving himself, without any kind of source from anything, or by anything. He has neither beginning nor end. He is immeasurable. No number can express his largeness and greatness. He is deeper than any thought can reach. He is nowhere far from anything, or nigh unto anything. He is through all and in all. His birth is everywhere, and without and besides him there is nothing else. He is time and eternity, abyss and abyss, and yet nothing comprehends him save the true understanding, which is God himself. Chapter 2 of the Word or Heart of God. This is now what St. John says, chapter 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and God was the Word. The same was in the beginning with God. The Word is the will of the abyss. The beginning is the conception or apprehension of the will, where it conceives and brings itself into an eternal beginning. The Word is now the conceived, which in the will is a nothing, and with the conception there is a generation. This was in the beginning with the will, and in the will, but with the lubet of the will, it receives its beginning in the conception of the will. Therefore it is called heart, viz., a centre or life circle, wherein the original of the eternal life is. And John says further, by the same were all things made, and without it was not anything made that was made. In it was the life, and the life was the light of men. Here, O man, take now this light of life, which was in the Word, and is eternal, and behold the being of all beings, and especially thyself, seeing thou art an image, life, and being of the unsearchable God, and a likeness as to him. Here consider time and eternity, heaven and hell, the world, light and darkness, pain and source, life and death, something and nothing. Here examine thyself, whether thou hast the light and life of the Word in thee, so that thou art able to see and understand all things. For thy life was in the Word, and was made manifest in the image which God created. It was breathed into it from the Spirit of the Word. Now lift up thy understanding in the light of thy life, and behold the formed Word. Consider its inward generation, for all is manifest in the light of life. Dost thou say, I cannot? I am corrupt and depraved? Hear me. Thou art not as yet born of God, otherwise, if thou hadst gained that same light, then thou couldst. Go to, then. We all indeed come far short of the glory which we ought to have in God. But I will show thee somewhat. Have a care, and conceive it aright. Be not a mocker, as the confused Babel is. Lo, when we would speak of the being of all beings, then we say that from God and through God are all things. For St. John says also, that without him was not anything made that was made. Now says reason, whence or how has God made good and evil, pain and joy, life and death? Is there any such will in God which makes the evil? Here reason begins to speculate, and will apprehend it, but it goes only about the outside of the circle, and cannot enter in, for it is without, and not in the word of the life circle. Now then behold thyself, and consider what thou art. View what the outward world is with its dominion, and thou shalt find that thou with thy outward spirit and being art the outward world. Thou art a little world out of the great world. Thy outward light is a chaos of the sun and stars, else thou couldst not see by the light, or receive light from of the sun. The stars give the essence of distinction in the intellective sight. Thy body is fire, air, water, earth. Therein also lies the metalline property, for of whatsoever the sun with the stars is a spirit, of that the earth with the other elements is a being, essence, substance, body, a coagulated power. What the superior being is, that is also the inferior, and all the creatures of this world are the same. When I take up a stone or clod of earth, and look upon it, then I see that which is above, and that which is below, yea, the whole world therein. Only that in each thing one property happeneth to be the chiefest and manifest, according to what is named. All the other properties are jointly therein, only in distinct degrees and centres, and yet all the degrees and centres are but one only centre. There is but one only root whence all things proceed. It only separates itself in the compaction, where it is coagulated. Its original is as a smoke or vaporous breath from the great mystery of the expressed word, which stands in all places in the re-expressing, that is, in the re-breathing, or echoing forth, a likeness according to itself, an essence according to the Spirit. But now we cannot say that the outward world is God, or the speaking word, which in itself is devoid of such essence, or likewise that the outward man is God. But it is only the expressed word, which has so coagulated itself in its reconception to its own expression, and does still continually coagulate itself with the four elements, through the spirit of the desire, viz., of the stars, and brings itself into such a motion and life, in the mode and manner as the eternally speaking word makes a mystery, which is spiritual in itself. Which mystery I call the centre of the eternal nature, where the eternal speaking word brings into itself a generation, and also makes such a spiritual world in itself as we have materially in the expressed word. For I say, the inward world is the heaven wherein God dwells, and the outward world is expressed out of the inward, and has only another beginning than the inward, but yet out of the inward. It is expressed from the inward, through the motion of the eternal speaking word, and closed into a beginning and an end. And the inward world stands in the eternal speaking word. The eternal word has spoken it through the wisdom, out of its own powers, colours and virtue, into an essence, as a great mystery, from eternity, which essence also is only as aspiration from the word in the wisdom, which has its reconception to generation in itself, and with the conception does likewise coagulate itself, and introduces itself into forms, after the manner of the generation of the eternal word, as the powers, colours, and virtue generate themselves in the word through the wisdom, or, as I might say, out of the wisdom in the word. Therefore, there is nothing nigh unto or far off from God. One world is in the other, and all are only one. But one is spiritual, the other corporeal, as soul and body are in each other, and also time and eternity are but one thing, yet in distinct beginnings. The spiritual world, in the internal principle, has an eternal beginning, and the outward a temporal. Each has its birth in itself, but the eternal speaking word rules through and over all, yet it can neither be apprehended or conceived, either by the spiritual or external world, that it should stand still. But it works from eternity to eternity, and its work is conceived, for it is the formed word, and the working word is its life, and incomprehensible, for it is without all essence, as a bare understanding only, or a power that brings itself into essence, and expresses itself in the essence. In the inward spiritual world, the word conceives itself into a spiritual essence as one only element, wherein the four lie hid. But when God, viz. The Word, moved this one element, then the hidden properties manifested themselves, as there are four elements.